Yeah, the Monday edition, Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all. Studio at the Avenue in downtown Milwaukee for the first time in this new year. Joshy DiMaggio is here. He rejoins us for episode number 200, which is bananas, of this show. 200 of these already. We made it this far, so good for us. Welcome back, Joshy. Hunter Vaughn back in the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison as we react to the Packers' loss. Yeah, didn't think that's a word I'd be saying today. The Packers' loss to the Chicago Bears as they fall last night. Back-to-back losses. First time the Packers have done that this season. And 1-5 in NFC North play is how they finished the regular season. They were a fingertip away from going 0-6 in division play, which is crazy. It's just crazy. Look, last night's game was really gross, right? I mean, obviously, there were all sorts of weird things that happened from that punt return to the bad snaps early on in that game to some injuries, which we'll get into in a minute. Malik Willis played way more than we anticipated he would. Despite thinking he would play, he played way more than we thought he would play. It was just a lot of weird stuff in that game that ultimately leads to a Chicago Bears 24-22 win on a walk-off field goal, which they were unable to do back in Week 11. They are able to pull off in Week 18. They end their season on a win as they now will undergo their head coaching search following the firing of Matt Eberflus earlier in the season. It's hard to feel good today, though. And look, I get Jordan Love didn't play a whole heck of a lot. Josh Jacobs didn't play a whole heck of a lot. You lose Christian Watson now for the season with the torn ACL, it sounds like, from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. So just a lot of bad from yesterday. And the worst part of it, to be real honest with you, is the fact that now you've got to go to Philadelphia. That's where you go to. And I think, it would have happened regardless because the Terry McLaurin has the walk-off touchdown for the Commanders over the Cowboys, so they end up winning anyway, so they seal the 6th seed. It would have been, regardless of result, it would have been the Packers heading to Philly. But all in all, very messy game and very disappointing result for the Green Bay Packers. And today, as you sleep on it, and here we are, a little less than 24 hours removed, it's just hard to feel excited about this playoff game coming up on Sunday. It's hard to walk out of Lambeau Field yesterday with your second loss in a row and a loss to the lowly Chicago Bears, who had lost 10 in a row entering that game, and going, yeah, this is a team that can go to Philly, a really hostile environment. This is a team that can go there and beat up on that team. Now, there are reasons for optimism, believe it or not, which we will get to in a bit. But today, it's hard to feel that way. So Packers lose to the Bears, all ugly, all around. Malik Willis' first loss is a Green Bay Packer, by the way, when he plays. So, yeah, not feeling too great today. Before we dive a little bit deeper into this game, I want to bring in Joshy. So I haven't talked to him in a few weeks. Since we last spoke, which was ahead of that New Orleans game, the Packers are 1-2 with losses to the Vikings and Bears in back-to-back weeks, including, obviously, yesterday's game to the Bears, which was really bad. How you feeling?
I feel fine. I feel better than most people I've noticed, be it the callers to ESPN Milwaukee or many of the hosts. I think the Packers put together an embarrassing game, a shameful game, a game nobody should be proud of. But there is a way to say that probably that's something they needed to face. They faced better teams, and they were like, oh, we were so close, we're right there. And then they got punched in the mouth by a team far worse than them and played like crap. I'm not discouraged by the loss to the Vikings. I think that is what it is.
Huh?
The Packers are, I said it before, until this game, they're the most perfectly ranked team ever. They lost to every team better than them, and they beat every team worse than them. That changed, obviously, yesterday with... mean, the Packers tried to do we're half in, half out, and they got a bad result. It was very clear they were not committed to going out and winning that game. They wanted to get a lead, pull their starters, and then try and hold on for dear life. And then when they realized the game wasn't going their way, they tried to middle it. Like, we're still playing starters, but we're not going.
Some starters.
Yeah.
So that's a great point by you. I feel like they didn't really commit to what they wanted to do yesterday. Right? They could have committed to, okay, we don't need Watson. We don't need to play Love. We don't need to play Jacobs. We don't need to play McKinney, etc. We're just going to throw out our JV squad or our backups and hope we can win.
Yep.
Or you play everybody, hoping your old friend Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys take care of business, which they almost did. And you smoke them, which, granted, probably wouldn't have happened given what happened yesterday, right? Jordan Love has the elbow injury, what they officially listed as, says he lost a little bit of feeling in his hand. Now, I imagine cold weather may have played a role in that. It's kind of like a funny bone injury, is my understanding.
Ulnar nerve.
One more time?
The ulnar nerve.
Did you know what that was 24 hours ago?
I did, yes.
Good for you.
That's just because that nerve has caused other players, like severe injuries to it, have caused like longer term injuries.
Didn't Josh Allen have a little bit of this a couple weeks ago? Or earlier in the season, I think he had a similar thing happen that Love did.
I believe Joe Burrow had like surgery on it, or had like there was a whole thing about him closing his hand and being able to open it because of that said nerve.
Okay.
Basically, your funny bone is an injury but ulnar operates much the same way.
Got it. Nothing to worry about, is my understanding.
It doesn't. I mean, Matt Lafleur said he could have
gone back in.
Yes, and they debated it, which is. Matt Lafleur had a bad day yesterday.
Maybe his worst.
The fact that your quarterback's going to get injured, you're going to pull him and then go, well, maybe if we want to win this enough, we're going to put him back in.
Put him back in.
What the hell is that?
Then obviously Willis kind of he hit his hand on a helmet at one point, so I think that's maybe when they were debating that. Yeah, it was certainly Matt LaFleur's worst moment.
Yes.
Is the way I view it. There were so many decisions that were questionable. The worst of all was obviously that timeout with 58 seconds remaining.
Yes.
And, you know, we'll hear from Matt LaFleur in just a second. But the fact that the Packers had the opportunity to win the game the way in which the Bears lost it in Week 11 by kicking a walk-off field goal is awesome, right? That's a great story. That's a great storyline for this rivalry and for what should have been a 12-0 record for the head coach against the Chicago Bears in his tenure as the Packers head coach. Instead, with 58 seconds left, it's fourth down. You got a long field goal, but makeable for Brandon McManus. And LaFleur says, yes, let's go for it. Let's do it. But he calls a timeout when there's still 20-plus seconds to run off the clock.
Panic.
He panicked. And here was his explanation after the game about the timeout with 58 seconds left, which gave the Bears enough time to drive down the field and eventually kick the game-winning field goal.
And then at the end of the game, that's squarely on me. Just got caught in a situation where we were planning on going for it, and they felt like Brandon could make that field goal. And hindsight's 20/20. I wish I wouldn't have taken the timeout because it gave him obviously way too much time to go down and operate. So, like I told the team, I mean, that's on me. That can't happen.
The issue is it did happen, and it was your fault. So I get that some people can say, yes, we have optimism heading into Philadelphia. There are ways to win this game. I don't know how any Packer fan walks away from yesterday's game and goes, that's a coach that can bring us to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying fire Matt LaFleur. That's not at all the case I'm making. I like Matt LaFleur. I think he's a really good head coach. But there have been several moments this season where you go, what the hell are you doing? Whether it's bad challenges, whether it's, trying to be like Dan Campbell, questionable fourth down rather than taking the points, or vice versa, right? Easy fourth down and kicking the field goal to make a one-possession game a one-possession game, or a two-possession game a two-possession game. The Packers had a fine season and a good record, right? 11-6 is not a bad year. But in the 6 games that they lost, there were multiple moments in each of those games where you're going, I don't know about that one. And yesterday, no exception. So, yes, to Joshy's point, this one falls on the shoulders of Matt LaFleur. And again, it wasn't an ideal scenario, right? Love leaves that game probably a little bit earlier than he would have liked. Malik Willis was good, not great, but he was good. He was efficient in the passing game. Special teams, bad. Rich Bisaccia, bad. That's a guy who I'd be in favor of probably moving on from after this season.
I'm Matt Lafleur.
Yeah.
Because people have been quite critical of him, which he deserves. I've heard him called a fraud, which pump the brakes a little bit. Let's slow down. Just remember what has happened this season, all the things it took to get where they are right now. But Matt Lafleur needs like a sensei in his headset. He needs somebody who can slow it down for him, tell him scenarios, tell him, hey, no, we're not calling a timeout here. If you're calling a timeout, please let the clock run out, and then we'll go from there. He seems to get out over his skis and gets emotional, a thing Tausch brought up and people seem to consistently agree with. Like, he gets emotional, lets his emotion get the best of him, and the result is oftentimes him making mistakes. The second thing is Matt Lafleur, and you guys are going to love this, Matt Lafleur taking the accountability for everything was a thing that he kind of a position he assumed because he had a quarterback who didn't like to take it.
Yep.
But now, when you say it's my fault, and it really is, everyone's like, well, stop saying that. Fix it. Because he takes accountability for everything that's his fault or not.
Yes.
Like, at every step of the way, he's saying, yeah, that's on me. And it's like, well, you didn't tell Jordan to throw into triple coverage. Like, I'm pretty sure of that, so that's not on you, really. But the amount of times he says it makes everyone now nuts. Because you certainly don't want to blaming other people, but just saying, that's on me, is like, we'll make it stop.
It's incredible that you always find a way to bring it back to Aaron Rodgers, who was electric yesterday, by the way. In the Jets win over the Dolphins. He threw 4 touchdown passes. He was really good.
For him.
It was an enjoyable watch. Hope that's not the end, to be honest.
Watch.
And I watched the whole game.
It's an ugly game.
It was ugly.
They were in a close game with Snoop Huntley.
Snoop Huntley, yeah. Snoop.
You fumbled it 4 times.
Oh, I know. DJ Reed, future Green Bay Packer. That's my take on that one. All right, big news today for me and Rappaport of the NFL Network is Christian Watson has torn his ACL. He is out for the playoffs, obviously, and likely the beginning of next season. And that is a really crappy situation for a guy whose best ability is speed, entering a contract year next year. We've said it all year long. Despite his mixed availability the last couple of years, he does so much for this Packers offense. He opens a lot up, right? The way he stretches the field is unmatched, right? Bo Melton's really fast too, but he's not Christian Watson. So when you see a non-contact injury like you did yesterday with Watson, you assume the worst, and it was the worst. So Christian Watson will obviously be out for the remainder of the postseason and specifically Sunday against the Eagles. Jordan Love with the elbow injury, sounds like we're good there. So Jordan Love will play Sunday against the Eagles. Nothing to worry about. Not quite like the last time the Packers played the Eagles where he was seriously injured and had to miss a few games. He's good to go for Sunday. But without, I think it's fair to say, his best target this season in Christian Watson. It's a big miss. And it's something you have to acknowledge that you're now missing incredibly crucial pieces on each side of the football going into the wild card round. In Christian Watson and Jair Alexander. The good news about missing those two guys is you have learned to play without them. So it is not that abnormal to not have Christian Watson and Jair Alexander. As much as you would like them, and as crucial as I think they would be to a deep playoff run, you will be without both Watson and Jair Alexander. So this game is Sunday at 3:25. It gets a national spotlight. Well, they're all national spotlight, but it gets the premier time slot on Sunday, the 3:25 kick between the Packers and the Eagles. Could be a bookend. It's going to be a bookend for one of these two teams. You're starting your season and ending your season with one another. The team you open up the season with. These two teams are very different, though. They're both better teams than they were in week one, because week one, especially on a neutral site game like it was in Brazil, is kind of a glorified preseason game to a point. You're still knocking off some rust for your starters. You're kind of still getting into the swing of things, and the Packers were out of sorts a little bit in that game. Still competed well and brought it down to the wire, but it's a very different game. Jalen Hurts has thrown a total. Josh, you gave me the stat. Is it 3 passes in the last month?
I believe it's like 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's missed the last 3 games with that concussion.
Yes, and he went out early with that concussion in the game he was playing.
And he probably could have returned yesterday. Obviously, they sat everybody yesterday against the Giants. You've got to find a way to slow down Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. And something that's been incredibly problematic for the Packers this year is when you are facing really good receiving teams with multiple receiving threats, right? Think about the teams they've lost to. Obviously, the Eagles are one of them. You've lost the Lions twice. That would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. That'd be Tim Patrick. That'd be Jamison Williams. How about the Vikings? Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. Jalen Naylor came out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago. The Bears, believe it or not, still pretty good contingency of wide receivers in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze. Teams you've lost to all have that strength. And obviously, the Eagles being a team you lost to, still have that strength. And a good quarterback who can extend plays and use his legs. I mean, he's not the most mobile quarterback in the NFL, but he has the ability to run the football. Offensively, they pose an incredible threat to this Packers team. The way you win on Sunday is by scoring early, fast start, which this team has been incompetent at doing the last couple weeks. New Orleans, the last game had done it. And it's going to have to be a shootout. Like, you're going to have to score 4 or 5 touchdowns to win this game on Sunday. So we'll dive deeper into a preview on that game as we roll on. And Jim Rutledge, by the way, going to join us here in about 5 minutes. I'm going to let him gloat for a little bit. And then I want to talk NFL playoffs, because one thing I love about Jim Rutledge is he is as big of an NFL fan as I am, and I kind of want to work our way around all the wild card games after he inevitably gloats.
I want to get something out there.
Yep.
No one's going to pick the Packers to win, so I'm going to.
Oh, okay. Already on Monday you're saying that. Mm-hmm. Okay. I haven't made my decision up yet. I mean, I need to stew on this a little bit more. You know me, Joshy.
Yeah.
As I have more time to think about it, I will come up with more reasons to convince myself they'll win.
If you listen to everything from pretty much 3:30 yesterday up until this very moment, the Packers are going to lose by 40, and that's the way
it won't be that bad. So it opened as a 3.5-point line. It's up to 5.5 because all the money's going on Philly. And I asked you this morning, first time I've seen you in a while. I said 5.5. You taking it? And you said no, I'm not. I would not take the Eagles on 5.5.
No, do the Packers lose big to anyone?
No, it doesn't seem. I mean, not this year.
Haven't all their losses been like a grand total of like 24 points when you add them all up?
It'd have to be something about that. Yeah, that early Lions game I think is their biggest loss. Otherwise, it's been one possession. Yeah. And even that Vikings game that was disgusting early on at the end of September when it was 28-0, they lost by 2 points. So we'll see. All right, we've got some reaction to get to, so we're going to jump in the time machine first for this one. Let's go to last week. For the second time this season, I say there is a 0% chance the Chicago Bears beat the Green Bay Packers on Sunday.
Do you dress up like anybody else if they lose? Like you?
I will run back the Mike Ditka one. I will show up here, gray mustache, old
vest,
suit, cigar, sometime next week.
It's got to be the Bears vest.
Dude,
I'll find you one.
Malik Willis will play on Sunday, and Malik Willis will get his 4th win of the season.
Wild.
Yeah, not my best.
Idiot.
Not my best. On the ESPN Madison YouTube chat, David says, the phrase of the day today, Strouf, is nothing is given in today's NFL. I don't care what anybody says. There's never a 0% chance for anybody to lose a football game in the NFL. I agree. Look, I stand by what I said. I felt really good about the Packers' chances, even if Malik Willis started that game.
What? Why? Like, nothing leading up to that game.
It felt trappy, for sure.
Nothing leading up to that game made you feel like they are going to go in there and absolutely... They were telling us they were going to half-ass it. They told us all week.
No, but I'll give you multiple reasons why I thought they were going to. Reason number one is that was a checked-out team. DJ Moore was talking about vacation 3 weeks ago. Right? This is a team that... I don't think they really cared to win for Thomas Brown, right?
Who does that game matter more for yesterday?
Probably I would make a case for the Packers, actually.
I mean, Cairo Santos was running around like he was on fire.
Yeah, did you see that? That was strange.
Not a great celebrator.
No, not a great celebrator. Well, speaking of not a great celebrator, Josh, you have not seen this yet, is my understanding.
I have not.
So Jim Rutledge, who is ESPN Wisconsin's resident Bears fan, Now, this needs to be noted for real quick before I show you the footage. I've known Jim Rutledge for over 4 years. That's a long time. That's longer than you're in high school. That's longer than most people, not Jim Rutledge, are in college, right? 4 years is a long time. I didn't realize this until yesterday. I've worked with Jim for years. I've been friends with Jim for years. We talk NFL all the time. I have never known Jim when the Bears beat the Packers. This is the first time it's happened in the entirety of our relationship, which is kind of bonkers to me. So I've never seen Jim Rutledge be able to celebrate a win over the Packers. And not only did I get to see Jim Rutledge celebrate a win over the Packers, we all did, from the comfort of his home. Here is the home video footage of Jim Rutledge celebrating the Bears win over the Packers yesterday. Now, there's no sound, so you'll just have, if you're listening on the podcast side of things, I will just explain it to you as we watch it live. So here is the field goal. Jim starts jumping up and down in his living room. He slides on the floor through his kitchen, runs back into his living room, and lifts up his youngest daughter as he pumps his fist. And then he just keeps pumping his fist. And he's smiling ear to ear. His dog's looking at him like he's bat bleep crazy. And he's just going banana. Oh, my God. Jim Rutledge joins us now from the Everlight Solar Studio, wearing his...
He looks handsome.
He does. He looks really sharp. He's wearing the Mike Ditka Bears vest, which I'm going to need to borrow in the near future, given the bet I placed.
Make its way down here this week.
Yep, I'm going to need to borrow that at some point this week to celebrate the Bears win over the Packers. Jimmy, I will say this, as I just mentioned.
Yeah.
I've known you for 4 years. I've never, this is the first time I've encountered this. It's always been Packers win, so I've always been respectful to you. You don't need to be respectful to me. I'm just going to give you the floor. Go ahead.
Look, it's not a lot of disrespect thrown at the Packers. There's a lot of different things that I think are more long-term problems for the Packers that showed up in that game. I'll explain my elation because for a big chunk of the day, I wasn't that into the game. But it was when Daryl Johnston said, Bears fans are wondering when they're going to screw this up and DJ Moore drops the ball. Then I hated it. And then when the kicker that nobody would ever introduce to a female friend of theirs makes the kick, 55-yard kick, that really stuck with me. And I was obviously really annoyed with what today was going to be. And then it ends with Caleb Williams having the moment that he had about 4 times this year, but this time it actually comes through for the Chicago Bears. And Cairo Santos gets the big monkey off his back. He said he literally was praying for an opportunity to make that kick. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of just like, holy cow, all those stupid lists go away. And the game means nothing long-term for the Bears. And I know they went from the 9th to the 10th pick. I know Tausch was trying to cope on social media with that little shot, but one pick is not going to make the difference. Caleb Williams is now 1-1 against the Green Bay Packers. The Bears are undefeated in 2025. Caleb Williams has a game-winning drive at Lambeau Field. The Bears' losing streak at Lambeau Field over. The Bears' losing streak against the Packers over. The season's cooked. The Bears had a bad season. It ended on an incredibly high note, and it's something that when the game pops up, it looks a lot better than the Bears are 1-20 in their last 21 road games on a Sunday. But now they're 1 instead of they haven't won a road game on a Sunday in 20 games, or they haven't won at Lambeau Field since God knows when, or they haven't beaten the Packers under Coach Lafleur. All those are out the window. Thomas Brown made Matt Eberflus the only coach in Bears history never to beat the Packers because Thomas Brown is an interim coach.
Wow.
Beat the Packers.
Wow, that's an incredible stat. Yeah, look, man, it was, and you'd admit this. Obviously, it's a great high note for Bears fans for what was a totally disappointing season.
Yep.
But that was a really gross football game. I mean, like, it was all over the place. For the Bears, at least, that early punt return was fun. On the Packers side of things, complete dysfunction. That late throw, which led to the walk-off field goal for Santos. I don't know what the defense was doing there. My best guess is with the Bears having no timeouts left, they just said, hey, let's give them a big gain and just assume they don't have enough time to get up and spike it.
That's exactly what they said. Matt Lafleur said as much. They basically misjudged the clock. So they were playing for the sideline or deep.
Dude, okay, so that's funny that
Twice.
you say that, Joshy, because
He misjudged the clock twice.
management
Yes?
against a team that has had how many issues this season
Yeah.
with managing the clock, right? That's what led to Eberflus's firing, is how poorly he managed the clock. LaFleur pulled a Bears against the Bears in the final game of the regular season. Wow. Incredible. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, Jimmy, on a Packers side of things, should I have any level of confidence going to Philly? Can I convince myself of that? Where are you at, less than 24 hours removed on the first time the Packers this year have lost back-to-back games?
I mean, I said this going into the Packers-Bears game that you should be worried about the Packers if they lose to the Bears because it means the Packers didn't show up. It means they let the Vikings beat them twice. And you said that this season's been a problem for the Packers not showing up in the first quarter. I believe the Warren P comment from Coach LaFleur was from last year, or was that 2 years ago? This has been a forever problem for the Green Bay Packers. Not a this season problem. It's been a forever problem for the Green Bay Packers. What's also been a forever problem for the Green Bay Packers, and it happened again this game, however it did, not being able to stop a team at the end of the game. Think of how many of those games, whether the Lions this year, Vikings being able to make a few big plays to salt out that game, the Bears this time. So those concerns have been a Coach LaFleur problem. Now, I'm not saying get rid of Coach LaFleur, but think of it like this, because I don't know what to make of the Packers. The Packers are what, one finger away from being 0-6 in the division?
100% correct.
And they are far better than Chicago. I just don't know. It could be a case that Philadelphia, Minnesota, Detroit, and maybe every other playoff team is better than the Packers. And that's kind of the wild card we just don't know. They're an inconsistent team, so I think they're fully capable of beating Philadelphia. I actually don't think Philadelphia is as good as many people make them out to, but they're hard to figure too. They got Kellen Moore as their OC, which was a replacement from last year. They basically were last year's reverse Packers. They had a hot start, and they're doing what the Packers did this year. The Packers finished strong. Philadelphia had a hot start and then just fell off and then lost in the first round. The Packers got hot late and won their first game. So this time around, Philadelphia, new offensive coordinator, and they got Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio is one of the greatest defensive coordinators probably in the last 25 years.
Probably, yeah.
And he's played the Packers plenty of times. And then Kellen Moore is a guy who really knows how to call plays. And Saquon Barkley is weirdly one of the few running backs you can say is better than Josh Jacobs. So Philadelphia is a really good team. Philadelphia is a hard place to play. The Packers seem to come out flat. And I don't know if they can do their repeat, because I heard you say, like, oh, they haven't been blown out. I don't know if you can do your same sort of get your butt kicked through the first half into the third quarter and then slap on some points. So let's be honest, the Minnesota game, it was basically a blowout. There was one good drive from Jordan Love.
You're referring to the one in Lambeau, right?
No, I meant the one against at Minnesota though too. I mean, you got a late drive. You got a late drive from Jordan Love. The rest of it was Minnesota kind of blowing that game.
It certainly felt like one of those nights, and then in the third quarter, it felt like it was over, and then of course they give you hope and kind of build you back up. But you're right. I mean, that game really always kind of felt out of hand.
Yeah, I just don't think that'll work in the playoffs. So the Packers have to do what they have.
Not when you're playing a team that's as good as Philly, right? Like that's a team that minimizes mistakes. That is I don't know if I want to call them well coached, but they have so many dogs on each side of the ball, especially in the trenches, which is truthfully what I'm worried about most, because Packers pass rush has been pretty non-existent this season. Eagles, very good offensive line. They do have a Pro Bowler in Rashawn Gary. You're so right. Totally deserved as well. So we'll see. Like it's certainly a tough test. And when it comes to the seeding, I guess I don't really care, because you would have had to face them at some point anyway, whether that be in the first round or the NFC Championship game, if the Packers were to get that far. So it's a really tough path for the Packers now. It'd be Eagles, Lions, and then likely the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. Don't love their chances through 3 weeks, but could they win a game? Yeah, maybe. And that's something we'll obviously talk about on all of our shows, including here on Mr. Relevant and on Jim, Matt, and Molly, weekdays 4 to 6 ESPN Madison throughout the week. I'm I'm interested. I think it should be a fun one. But yeah, I mean, as we've seen all year, if the Packers can come out and score a touchdown in the first quarter, typically they win those games. And if they don't win those games. So we'll see.
I
We'll
heard
see on that.
I heard Joshy reference he's going to get out in front of picking the Eagles. I would say that I would be more shocked at the Eagles covering than the Packers winning. Like, I think the Eagles are going to win. I think the Packers, if nothing else, will put up points late to make it look a little bit closer. I mean, I would say 40% chance the Packers win. That's kind of what the line would suggest.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a 40% chance the Packers win. They're not, like, done. They're a good team. They won a lot of games this year. Jordan Love in the passing game looks off. Toyota-thon is, I don't know, it's a bad sale this year, and it's officially over. But
It's a bad sale this year.
Over. That's the bad part.
He didn't look good against Minnesota. He had like a nice drive.
No.
They didn't say lesser Toyota-thon than last year. And
No, for
basically,
sure.
the Toyota-thon this year was Josh Jacobs being the pickup truck. I mean, the offense works when they use Josh Jacobs and then they treat Jordan Love like he's Jared Goff. He throws more than 30 passes.
Toyota Tundra.
He throws interceptions. More than 30 passes this year, he will throw an interception. So they can't get in a shootout, which means the defense has to show up, which means they have to stop Saquon Barkley. All those things can happen. But I think I agree with your point more of they're not getting to the Super Bowl. 3 road wins against 3 teams they've shown they haven't been able to beat of that caliber seems impossible, but beating one of them, no, not impossible at all.
Not impossible, but certainly should be an intriguing one. All right, I want to get to a bunch of NFL at-large topics with you, Jimmy, because you, aside from myself, are probably like the biggest NFL at-large fan, and maybe that plays into the fact that the Bears haven't given you a ton to root for the last couple of years,
right,
this time of year. But I'm curious for you. 6 wild card matchups coming up. Let's exclude the Packers-Eagles. The other 5: Minnesota visits the Rams, the Commanders visit the Buccaneers, the Chargers go to the Texans. Divisional matchup between the Steelers and the Ravens in Baltimore, and then the Broncos, the 7 seed, head to Buffalo facing the 2 seed. Of those 5, which one is your must-watch? Which one is most intriguing to you of those 5?
Oh, that's a good one. I think the best game is going to be the Rams-Vikings, and that's not even a shot at the Vikings. I don't know why the Rams didn't care about playoff positioning, because if I'm the Rams, I don't want to play the Vikings. I don't think last night's game is some sort of the Vikings stink sort of thing. I think Detroit's just really good. Both their coordinators are going to be interviewed for head coaching jobs, and both their coordinators have been there for a while, and Dan Campbell set a culture there. And so Minnesota losing to Detroit doesn't make me think less of them. So I think the Rams are going to make it a game, but I think the Rams are also going to regret basically giving themselves a bye against Seattle, because I think they would have preferred to not have to play Minnesota their first game. But that game, I think, will be very good.
I'm with you. I think that's the Monday night game, by the way.
Yeah.
So we have to wait a full week to watch that one. But yeah, I think that's probably it's certainly the most intriguing NFC matchup. I think the Steelers-Ravens game is going to get out of hand despite the history and the rivalry there, right? Baltimore is just on another level.
Do you think Justin Fields...
Chargers...
I think Fields makes...
Could Chargers-Texans... No, go ahead.
I think Fields makes an appearance in that game. I think the full Russell
you think
Wilson...
it'll be that bad?
I mean, I saw plenty of... There was talk of why not throw him in against their last game, the Steelers. I think Fields, maybe he doesn't come in and play fully replacing Russell, but I think he provides, and you don't need to keep him healthy. I hate to say it like that, but he's an elite runner. He's in the Hall of Fame for how much he ran the football in a single game. Yeah. He is not going to be a franchise QB, but he is a weapon, and if the Steelers are smart, they would figure out how to use him more as a weapon in this game for any shot at an upset.
Yeah. Yeah, Taysom Hill-esque, right? Like, he's that good. Get him on the field if he's a dangerous weapon. Yeah, that one's intriguing to me. I was talking off the air a little bit with Joshy on the NFC side, that other game we haven't talked about. Commanders-Buccaneers, they might score 100 points in that game.
Yeah.
Like, those are 2 offenses that are completely capable of going bananas, and neither defense is that great. Now, Jaden Daniels has come back to earth a little bit the last few weeks, but I really think that game could just be point fiesta.
I think it'll be entertaining, but to me, that's the lowest stakes of them all. Like, in terms of which game is going to produce a potential Super Bowl winner,
sure,
that's the one you would pretty much cross off the board instantly.
Yeah, 100% agree. Other than that, Chargers-Texans.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, that's the game where I don't think either of those teams have a chance of making the Super Bowl. Another game that could have a lot of points, right? And could be a fun watch. Buffalo should roll Denver, I would guess. I mean, Denver's a cool story. Bo Nix, Sean Payton, et cetera, breaking and snapping the second longest playoff streak or drought rather in the NFL. But going to Buffalo in January against the MVP favorite is probably not very fun. So we will see on that. But a fun slate for Super Wild Card Weekend here coming up beginning Saturday. Jimmy, I feel like this is the best MVP race we've had in a really long time, because it feels like typically it's like week 16, it's decided. I mean, there's really only two options, but I could probably make the case for like 6 people that I would vote for MVP in the league. And I'll just rattle off some names, and then you can give me who you think will win it or who you would vote for if you had a vote. It's Lamar and Josh Allen are obviously the 2 favorites. But after that, I think about Saquon Barkley and the unbelievable season he's had. I think about Sam Darnold.
Yep.
And what he's been able to do for the Vikings. I think about Jared Goff, how efficient he has been for the Lions, leading them to the number 1 seed, despite all the injuries and all the turmoil they've gone through. Leads the league in completion percentage, which is a really impressive mark. And then a guy, I don't know that I'd vote for him, but I think should be mentioned and hasn't been talked about at all, is Baker Mayfield. He was without his top targets like most of the year and still led his team to a division title. So one of the better MVP races in recent memory. If you were to vote, where would you go with it?
One, I want to just follow up on your Baker thing. He completed 71% of his passes for 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns this year.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he's a classic, there's a few of them. Sam Darnold could have been another one as well. Teams gave up on these guys a little too quickly. And
second chance guy, right?
Yeah. I mean, his second to last season with the Browns, he was 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I mean, like, sometimes you just have to, organizations can't give out of their own way. But Joe Burrow's another name.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not his fault. The defense is horrendous, and his offensive line is horrible. Yes, he has weapons, but beyond the 2 most important things, trust me, the offensive line matters. Joe Burrow was someone who played fantastic. 27 different starting lineups in offensive line for the Bears this year. But I would give it to Josh Allen.
Yep.
Also, another guy who had 2 bad years to start his career, and then got
totally.
going.
Yeah. The thing with him, though, was the flashes were just evident immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, you could see this guy's going to be a freaking superstar from the get-go.
Yep.
But, yeah, he had a ton of mistakes. He was turnover-riddled, and he's cleaned that up a ton. I think I'd probably vote for Lamar again, though, for back-to-back in his 3rd MVP, because what he has done this year is unbelievable. And obviously adding Derrick Henry to that offense has been a cheat code for him. But what did he do? 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, I think it was, for Lamar? Yeah. I mean, that's Aaron Rodgers' 2020 numbers.
I think Josh Allen is benefiting a lot from beating 2 really good teams and him being like the sole reason.
Where would you go, Joshy?
I think it's Josh Allen.
Okay.
I don't have a good enough argument to tell you no on Lamar, though.
Yes.
It's just like it's that close to me, and whoever wins, like, I'm not going to be upset if Lamar wins and Josh Allen like is second place. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, both those guys were incredible.
Yeah.
Yes. And are both deserving.
Last thing for you, Jim, is the Bears obviously have a head coaching vacancy, and it is dubbed Black Monday today, as obviously a lot of coaches being fired. We see Gerard Mayo is out in New England. He was fired yesterday. New Orleans obviously has an opening. Chicago, as I mentioned, has an opening. The Jets have an opening. Who do you want the next head coach of the Chicago Bears to be? Is it Ben Johnson? Is it as simple as that?
I would say Ben Johnson right now is the only coordinator who doesn't have head coaching experience who I want. I'm not 100% opposed to Anthony Weaver from the Dolphins, defensive coordinator, mainly because his ties to the Ravens. And I think the Ravens are one of those franchises that you'd say, and the Dolphins had a top 3 defense this year, but the Ravens are one of those franchises where you go, okay, they know how to do things, and he's getting a lot of buzz. But Ben Johnson's my number 1. The other guy that I would not be upset about at all, and I think Tauscher put it out first, and some Bears fans get upset about it, Mike McCarthy's number 2 on my list. He has obviously developed Aaron Rodgers. Dak Prescott got better with him. His bad years with Dallas have been the years that Dak gets hurt. He's done won 12 games when Dak's healthy. And what's the term? First world problems. If Bear fans are worried about flaming out in the playoffs, let's get there. Let's get to that problem first. Like, I will take that. Give me that problem immediately. If I got a quarterback putting up near MVP numbers like Dak does, and my team wins 12 games and I lose in the first round, fine. That you have to crawl before you walk, and I am fine with those problems.
So on McCarthy to Chicago, which has been talked about a ton, obviously this past week with the Packers and Bears going head-to-head, I don't want that at all. And it's not because of the fun storyline it would provide. It's because I think that is a guy that could legitimately rebuild the Bears and develop, to your point, Caleb into that next level. Because it's clear, right? You're as a Packers fan, you were lying to yourself if you don't think Caleb Williams has shown flashes this year that proves he's the right guy for that job. Now, to your point, they need to build that offensive line in front of him. They need to protect him. But he's clearly got the intangibles. He's got the skills. He's got the ability to be a franchise quarterback for Chicago. They just need a competent front office and head coaching staff around him and an offensive line. But it starts with that head coaching hire, which is huge this offseason. McCarthy would be, I hate to say it out loud, Mike McCarthy would be a home run hire for the Chicago Bears if Jerry Jones lets him come available with this contract expiring in Dallas. I would hate to see it, Jim, but I totally hear where you're coming from.
It's just basically the safer version of Ben Johnson, and maybe he's not the offensive mastermind that Ben Johnson is. And I joked, I think halfway through the season with you, Strouf, that Ben Johnson, Robert Saleh, let's just make it happen. Robert Saleh has been a defensive. He's been a head coach. He's defensive coordinator. Let's just do it and let's see what happens. McCarthy, you don't need to bring in a guy who's been a head coach under McCarthy. Like, he's just a guy who he has the head coaching experience. I don't hate Pete Carroll or Vrabel. I take like Pleasant over Cliff Kingsbury. Like, I would take him over Kingsbury. So it kind of goes. The big thing is, I think, from what I've heard from our friends at ESPN 1000 and what they talk about, the Bears players want someone who holds them more accountable and is just more disciplined. But like, to your Caleb point, he's 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the red zone this year. He threw 0 interceptions against the NFC North this year. He is 1-5 with about a 63% 63% completion percentage and 9 touchdowns, and against 0 interceptions against the NFC North this year. He's got a lot of flaws. But to your point, I think because Daniels looks so good, Bo Nix is very much a product of Sean Payton. And he will be able to play with Sean Payton. But Bo Nix gives more of a Brock Purdy vibe to me. Daniels looks like he could be truly great. But you can look at the Packers quarterback in Jordan Love, and you can say he's either the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in his draft class, and he's still really good. And so you don't have to be the best. I mean, you got Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, and then Tua. That's all one draft class. It's not out of the question to say this draft class could just turn out a lot of good quarterbacks. Like, sometimes that happens.
Penix looks really good too, right?
Drake May.
There are some. Drake May. I mean, it depends on. It seems like Mike Vrabel's probably a shoo-in for that New England job.
I would
if
imagine.
I was a betting man, like that just makes. They should have done it last year, but that's beside the point. We'll see how it shakes out. But I imagine once the Bears do make a decision as we get deeper into the NFL playoffs, you and I will discuss it again. Jimmy, thank you for the laugh. Nice costume. I'm not joking when I say I literally need to borrow that sweater.
I'll be in
at some
town
point,
on Friday.
So.
I'm coming to your neck of the woods on Friday, so I'll bring it over.
All right, fantastic. Bring it along. Jimmy, thanks as always, buddy.
See you.
It's the great Jim Rutledge. I only call him great because he showed up dressed as Mike Ditka. Actually, that went a lot better than I thought it was going to. I thought he was going to gloat more than he did.
That's why I was confused about the celebration video, because Jim has come on here and been sort of rather defeated about the Bears.
Oh, many times.
But I understand it. You get caught up in the moment. It is, as he said, it does end a long history of us just being able to poke and bully him.
Yeah.
Well,
here's the thing. So today being episode 200, I wanted to go a direction of like somebody that's been on this show many times, right? So your options for that are like, there's probably like 3 or 4 of them. It's Jim Rutledge, it's Chris Orr, it's Colin Russo, and it's Rob Domofsky. Those are the 4 that have been on the show the most. And obviously, with the Bears winning, it felt fitting to bring on Jim. But every other appearance Jim has had on the show, I think this is appearance number 6 for him in the 200 episodes, we've done the quote-unquote respectful Bears conversation. I ask questions about the Bears that I am genuinely curious about, and I am not making fun of him. But with them winning last night, when I sent him a text last night, I said, if you want to gloat, gloat. But I said, I've treated you with respect, always. Hope you can do the same. And he did, so we'll take it.
yeah, I mean, you have to put into perspective. It was Week 18. The Packers clearly were not there to really play that game the way it should. But, hey, the Bears won. And they have that over the Packers. You got Santos running around, Jalen Johnson whipping the bird at them. Like, they got the win. It stopped a long history. On the head coaching, I think they need to go Ben Johnson or bust. Like everything needs to be Ben Johnson.
Probably the one thing with
Which
that, though,
I don't know why he would want to go there.
Do you want? Well, yes. Number one, I mean, he declined every opportunity he had last year to stay in Detroit this year. But the other part of that is they keep trying this first-time head coach thing, and it's not working.
Yeah, but
so is it the person you're hiring, or is it?
You have to go through the people they've tried. They haven't been the guy, the number one that everyone wants.
Yeah.
It's been like the fourth or fifth guy. Like, sure, there was buzz about some of the guys, but like Matt Nagy, was there anybody slamming the table for we need Matt Nagy?
Oh my God, I forgot to ask Jim about him being interviewed by the Jets. If there is zero Matt Nagy haters left on earth, that means Jim Rutledge is dead.
Like, were people slamming the table for Eberflus? I don't remember it that way.
I don't either.
Matt Nagy, though, was coming off of those years with Alex Smith and turning him into a competent quarterback.
That's right.
He was a big deal at that time. Yeah, like that was.
I remember that, but that still wasn't like that wasn't the one with a bullet guy.
No,
Ben Johnson is.
He is, but I guess you never really know either because people weren't freaking out and head over heels over Lafleur's hire either. Remember when the Packers hired Matt Lafleur, people were not psyched about him because he was coming from like the 29th most productive offense in the NFL that year when he was the OC in Tennessee. And that hire turned out all right, despite the fact we've gotten after him quite a bit today.
The Jaguars made a really bad decision sticking with Trent Baalke because I think that means there's no chance that Ben Johnson is going there.
Correct.
So they're probably going to have to pivot on their decision, or maybe he likes Trent Baalke for.
So hold on. So before we get to what we learned, which we can do this as our what we learned, right? It's Black Monday. Let's go over some of the openings in the NFL and just I want to rehash what's open and what would make sense. So New England is obviously an opening. The New York Jets are an opening. The Giants are staying put, right? Brian Dable did not get fired.
For some reason, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
They said that pretty much immediately after the game ended.
So we have New England, the Jets, the Bears, the Saints, the Jaguars. Am I missing anybody? The Raiders haven't moved on from Antonio Pierce yet.
Yeah, and the rumors are with Pierce that he's been having meetings with ownership about the future of the organization, so he's sticking around.
Tennessee, did they fire their head coach?
No.
Okay, so they're sticking with Callahan for another year. So those are the 5 openings I know of. Is Saints, Jets. Who am I missing? Oh my God, this is hard. I should have wrote this down. Jaguars, Patriots,
Bears,
Jets, Bears, Saints. What's the most appealing opening? Is it the Bears? I think it has to be. As sad as that is to say. Maybe you could make a case for the Saints.
No one's making a case for Saints.
Yeah,
because you got to figure out that quarterback situation.
Yeah, and they're in salary cap hell right now. One of the things that had come up, I was watching on Sportsmanlike this morning on the treadmill, and Evan Cohen brought up the idea of the Bears trading for Mike Tomlin.
So, yeah, Adam Schefter did report that yesterday, that quote-unquote NFL teams, plural, are inquiring about a potential trade for Mike Tomlin, which, number one, is a bonkers thing to inquire about while they're preparing for a playoff game.
Yes.
But number two, why would Pittsburgh do that? Like, I get maybe they need something fresh, but you can't
if
move
you can
on.
get a team first, like...
Sure. But I'd almost argue a guaranteed 500 record and almost a guaranteed playoff spot every year is worth a lot more.
It feels like this has got to
picks.
be coaches' agents, because the same thing came about with Kyle Shanahan.
That's right.
Like, for whatever reason, the coaches getting traded thing has become in vogue out of nowhere, and I don't really know why that's happening. Like, what incentive would you have unless you were playing a full rebuild in Pittsburgh?
But, like, I think it's also the idea, like, you know, Jim was talking about for Bears fans of, like, let's just get to the playoffs consistently. Like, I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'm tired of flaming out in the playoffs all the time. I want something new other than McCarthy, and, like, he's just getting them into the playoffs all the time. Like, you just kind of it gets stale, and there gets to be a certain point where you're like, okay, maybe we just got to change it up. And I think that's what it is with the Tomlin thing, is I think even ownership is like, you know, maybe we just got to change things up and try and go in a different direction and see if that gets them over the hump.
When it comes to the most appealing job, I'm not sure you could make a case for the Bears, the Jaguars. I mean, if you believe in Drake May to that extent, you could even make the case, even though the Patriots are terrible. When it comes to the Bears, though, Kevin Warren being there, to me, giant problem. The McCaskey family, giant problem. Like, for Ben Johnson to go there, I think he has to have some assurances that, like, he's calling the shots, basically. Like, he might not be the GM in title, but he gets to determine who's the GM and who they answer to and how that all works.
So then maybe it is the
Ryan
Saints. Because, like, the Saints would let him do that.
It's just that they are still in the Drew Brees hell.
Hold on.
For some reason.
Can we take a quick time out? Because this is a situation that nobody will know better than Hunter. Mike McCarthy's contract is up in Dallas.
Yeah.
What's going to happen there?
Jerry Jones is very non-committal right now. So I have a feeling they're going to get rid of him. I'm not a huge
he signed a new agent, which was Tom Brady's former agent.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that is negotiating his new deal in Dallas, where he's going to get paid, or he's going to go get a new job.
Yeah.
Because Mike McCarthy is not going to need to take a year off. That guy's going to get a job if he wants one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if Vrabel took a year off, I don't know if Vrabel needed to take a year off. But
no. And I think
Mike McCarthy's going to get a new job.
I think McCarthy is either, the two routes for him is either, I think he gets a contract that is the same length as Dak's, and then they're just like, okay, you're our guys. This is how long you're here for. Let's see what we can do there. Or I think he's ends up in Chicago. Like, those just feel like the two places that he's going to be. And yeah, Jerry's very non-committal with him. And usually if Jerry Jones is non-committal towards anyone, that means that you're not sticking around. Because he was not non-committal about Dak. He was never non-committal about Tony Romo. And he wasn't that way about CeeDee Lamb either. All those guys got contracts when they wanted them. And it's the same thing with now Micah Parsons. So if he's non-committal about McCarthy, that means he's probably going to be gone, or Jerry will overpay for him. The nice thing is it doesn't go against the salary cap, so it doesn't really matter. It just is less money in Jerry's pocket.
All right, appreciate the insight on that. All right, time to wrap up the show as we always do. You learn something new every day. We learn something new today. It's time now for what we learned. I'm going to start with math.
Oh,
come on. Nobody's going to react to that? Yeah, there we go. Joshy, I'm going to start with math.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I just thought you would say that's a scary thing for me to do because I'm not very good at it.
I thought you were making a reference.
So over on ESPN.com, you can look at the FPI, which is the football something index.
Power index?
Sure.
It is power.
Chances to make the next round, chances to make the Super Bowl. It is to the 10th, so just one place after the decimal percentage. Let's make some guesses. The Packers' chance to make the divisional round. Joshy, what are your thoughts?
That's the chance to win?
That would be the chance to win.
Basically just to win the next game.
Essentially.
I would say the FPI has them better than we'd think, 45%.
Okay. Hunter?
I'm going to go 42.5.
42.5. Okay, good guesses. You're both low, believe it or not. 49.7%, meaning the Eagles 50.3%. It shows you how thin the margin of error is in the NFL, according to the Football Power Index.
We also need to, it's
a reason for optimism.
This game opened as a half point, and everybody and their mom would go home and say that the Eagles are a far better team.
Mm-hmm.
They're a half point better, but the 3 points is the home field advantage there.
Right.
Vegas views and FPI and all these metrics we look at view these teams as very, very close.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everybody's overreacting a whole ton. Now, listen, I think if you play this game 10 times, the Eagles probably win 8 of them. That's where I stand. But all of the numbers are indicating when they do these deep dives that this should be a closer game than everyone thinks. And that the Packers have if you were to listen to Jen Game between Wilde and Tausch today, the Packers have less than a 5% chance to win, according to everyone you've listened to.
Yeah, it's obviously higher than that. They have them at 12.2% to make the Super Bowl, which is the third highest mark in the NFC, believe it or not. So
behind the Vikings and
Lions.
Yeah.
Now.
Also, hearing you guys as fans talk about this game, it reminds me to a year ago the way the Packer fans were talking about going into the Cowboys game. And like Sunday night, I was like, oh man, the Eagles are just going to kick the crap out of the Packers. But now the way that all the Packer fans are talking, I'm like, they're going to do it again. This is going to be so stupid.
But I think I had optimism the whole time going into Dallas. Like, obviously, it was a tough test, and I may have even picked the Cowboys. But I had more faith, I think, the Monday ahead of it than I do today. The Eagles worry me, man. Like, they were the last team I wanted to play in the wild card round. I would rather see Minnesota. I would rather see the rest of the teams, the Rams, the Commanders, the Buccaneers, whoever. I would rather face all of them than the Eagles. I still view them as the Lions made a hell of a statement last night. I view them as the second best team. I think the Lions have to be the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC. I mean,
especially when they're doing that
frickin' business.
That injured of a defense. Like that is.
Yeah, they got Alex Anzalone back, which was huge for them.
They still have 12 players on IR on the defense
just
alone.
On defense?
Just on defense. Wow. Like, and they're still figuring out ways. At one point, Minnesota was 0 for 7 inside the 5-yard line. Like, you don't do that with 12 guys on the IR. They are legitimate. Like, I know Tausch has been big on the Lions, they're banged up. They're just super banged up. Yeah, they might be. They're still the best defense in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm with you. They are really, really good. And Dan Campbell is infuriating. You find him cheesy, Joshy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
He's a good coach, and obviously he's created a great culture in Detroit.
I think the cheesy part of it is like some of the endearing in a way almost.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Actually,
so much like it's not even really an act for him.
No, he's not.
Just like that. Like,
he's unapologetically himself.
Yeah, a lot of those guys you can see through it and be like, you're doing like PJ Fleck.
Right, you're doing a thing.
You're doing a thing. We can tell this isn't like genuine. Dan Campbell's just a maniac. He's just nuts. He'll fly by the seat of his pants. He'll say something insane, and then his team will win. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. All right, Joshy Hunter, who's up next? What'd you learn?
I can go. I've got some video here, and I just learned that America is awesome, and we're going to play this.
Do I hear Freebird in the background?
Sure do.
Yeah, you do.
Hell yeah, brother.
America. Winning in overtime.
That's their goal song this year.
Yes. That's it. All of it was incredible. So I just needed everyone to see that.
Okay, so the song pick, that is super American.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. What's the context there now? Those are the junior
the junior
boys
world,
hockey, men's hockey?
Yeah, junior boys hockey world championships. It's the first time they've won back-to-back, and winning it in overtime against Finland, like, that's a big deal.
Was I so plugged into the NFL that I didn't see this? Was this a big deal?
If you're into hockey.
You clearly know about it.
Yeah, I'm aware of it because I'm not as big of a hockey fan as Hunter. I used to be, no longer am.
Oh, really?
But I follow along. Yeah, I played hockey for 15 years of my life.
Really?
Sure did.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah.
Really? What position? Tell me everything.
Throughout my career, I played every position. I played defense, and then I played a little right wing and a little center.
I could see you as a good
this is like
center.
Your sport.
What? Yeah. I played it longer than I ended up playing football. I enjoyed it more. It was a game I enjoyed playing more.
I can't skate. Could you teach me?
Yeah, I could.
Both times I've gone ice skating.
How are your ankles? Weak ankles, strong ankles?
What do you think?
You got weak ankles?
What do you think?
That'll be tough.
I broke my elbow the first time I went ice skating.
Yeah.
I was on a first date.
Yeah, you told us this.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I've told that story.
Yeah. I played. I enjoy hockey. I haven't skated in a while though. That Brian D might be better at it because I'd probably have to do a little joiner. But I mean, I had skates on at like 5 years old.
I watched our guy Brian D in the Milwaukee area men's club championship game at UWM Panther Arena a couple months ago. It's a heck of a time. He broke his ribs that game. I've told that story too. Yeah. Okay. Josh, you learn anything, or you just giving up because it's your first day back after the new year?
I don't know how much you guys have covered this. I was pretty unplugged. Everybody that complained about seeding and SEC teams not getting in, shut up. Don't do it again. Don't want to hear it. You guys are idiots. Just let them play football. What the hell? Shut the hell up. You guys don't know what you're talking about. The SEC got one team in that's not even really an SEC team in. Just let the guys play. It's fun. I like more football. Maybe some games are going to be a blowout. Yep. Maybe some games are going to be close.
Hey, good ones coming up later this week, though, man. Texas, Ohio State. I don't know how good that game will be.
Wouldn't you know it? We get all the good games we thought we should have gotten in the first place.
5, 6, 7, 8 seeds, right?
Also, everyone who was like, "Oh, let the BCS do it." Well, the two teams that would have been in there, not in there, gone. See ya. Screw the BCS. Play a playoff. This is football.
Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, your two semifinals coming up later this week. I'm really excited for that Penn State Notre Dame game.
Oh, I really hope we get an all Big Ten championship. That would just be so
I think there's
perfect.
a good shot we will. I think it'll be Ohio State, Penn State, probably. Ohio State's going to win it all. They're really good this year. But we'll see. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
It would be funny if Ohio State won it but lost to Michigan, and they have what is basically in their world a tainted championship because they lost to Michigan.
Their fans would try and put an asterisk by it.
Yes.
Oh, they would. Absolutely. They're crazy people. College sports, man, they're strange. All right, Wednesday we will get into full-blown preview mode. Packers-Eagles is your wild card matchup coming up Sunday afternoon. Deep breaths. The good news is for Packers fans, let's not lose sight of this. You're in the postseason. Everybody's record is 0-0 now. You win, you move on, you lose, your season's over. Same rule for every team. Yesterday was a bad loss. No beating around the bush on that one. The Bears stink. Shouldn't have lost that game. It sucks. It's horrible. It is what it is. Life will go on. Good to have Joshy back. Good to talk with Hunter again. Thanks to Jim Rutledge for jumping on. We're back with you Wednesday beginning at 12:30 Central on the ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube pages, and ESPN Madison on X. And available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand. Just search Mr. Irrelevant, the first result that will pop up. Make sure, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast feed. You don't need to listen to it if you're watching it on YouTube. But if you ever miss an episode, it's easy to grab. If you're driving around, you can always listen to us. We appreciate the support that way as well, either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just search Mr. Irrelevant on there. We'll talk to you Wednesday previewing Packers-Eagles. Going to be an interesting one. We'll talk to you then. Peace.